Fenlon, we meet again. And again. And again.
I grow tired of your visits, cat.
As do I, you slut.
You are a slut.
You're a slut.
You are the slut.
Cat, ready to dance.
I'm always ready.
Fenlongo, I've missed our chats.
Shut up and fight.
Welcome to the mother. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It has now come out that the upcoming fight between the two lightweight champions, Dubois and Terry Harper, will be for the Ring Magazine lightweight title. Last Ring Magazine lightweight champion was Katie Taylor before she decided to vacate all those titles to move up to 140. Is it warranted to have the Ring Magazine title on the line for this fight, it being that there are two other champions at the weight with, say, more impressive wins than anything we've seen from Caroline Dubois? Elif Nur-Turan's big win over amateur standout and silver medalist, and then IBF champion Beatriz Ferreira, who, for Elif Nur-Turan, is a bigger and better win than anything you see on Caroline's resume. And what about Stephanie Hahn, beating former three-weight world champion and Hall of Fame inductee Holly Holm? That is a bigger and better name than any name on Caroline's resume. So is it warranted to have the Ring Magazine title on the line in this fight? And it actually is, but not because of Caroline, because of Terry. Terry Harper, 29 years old, having been a champion at three weights at 130, currently at 135, and previously at 154, having taken titles from the long-reigning champion, Eva Wahlström. She took the WBC title from Eva Wahlström, took the WBA title from Hannah Rankin, and in more recent years, took the WBO title that she currently holds from then unbeaten Rhiannon Dixon, having shared the ring with the likes of Cecilia Brækhus. She fought to a draw, lost to Sandy Ryan, lost to Alicia Baumgartner, all of which counts towards Terry's resume and her experience, sporting a professional record of 16 wins with 2 losses and 2 draws, 6 knockouts, having been knocked out 2 times in 20 professional bouts. If there's a reason to have the Ring Magazine title on the line for this unification match, it's Terry's body of work. It's her resume, not necessarily Caroline's. 25 years old, sporting a professional record of 12 wins with no losses and 1 draw, 5 recorded knockouts. While she is being identified as the favorite going in with the odds makers, she's favored to win. In terms of resume, she's greatly lacking. As much as she's taking shots at Terry Harper and diminishing her body of work so far, Terry would be the biggest and the best name on Caroline's resume. So that explains why the Ring Magazine title is on the line. Caroline is a southpaw, whereas Terry is an orthodox fighter. Caroline has already made her MVP debut late last year in December when she fought Italy's own Camilla Panada, who she decisioned over 10 rounds, whereas Terry has yet to have made her debut, even though MVP picked her up all the way in the summer of last year. At the end of July, they've had a little over 7-8 months to get Terry Harper out there. I still don't understand why they didn't. Is it that they offered Terry Harper fights that she didn't want to take, or is it that they didn't offer her anything at all? It's strange to have signed this fighter so many months ago, and she will just now be making her MVP debut. Last in action in May of last year, in the only fight that she had last year against the then unbeaten Natalie Zimmerman of Germany, who she decisioned over 10 rounds. There was so much time left in there to get Terry Harper a fight in the fall or winter months. It's not like MVP didn't do shows around that time, because they did. So it does seem strange to me that Terry is just now about to make her MVP debut in what will be their debut as a promotion in the United Kingdom and the first fight of their newly inked Sky Sports deal. It's also going to be the first fight of their newly inked ESPN deal, now that they're going to be doing shows on that platform. I wonder what becomes of Terry Harper if she loses, because I think that she's going to. I suppose that she can always move up to 140 pounds after Katie Taylor retires and drops all the belts. that she holds there. Terry can see about picking up one of those belts. She's only 29 years old. Losing to Carolyn doesn't have to be the end of the world or the end of her career. She can move up. See about becoming a 4-weight world champion. It's ironic that Terry is by and large a far more experienced and decorated professional boxer than Carolyn, but everybody thinks she's going to lose, myself included. I think that it would be a pleasant surprise if Terry proved us all wrong, because I like Terry. My heart is with Terry, but my head, it's with Carolyn. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, Gervonta Davis and Pitbull Cruz are said to be in discussions for a mid-summer rematch amidst Gervonta Davis's latest legal dispute, the domestic abuse case with that girl he's said to have had a relationship with, walking into her place of work and dragging her into the parking lot. We've talked about it extensively. It would seem he is set to resume his career amidst all of this, and that he's fighting Cruz for a second time comes as no surprise to me. A tactless move, because nobody's asking you to fight him again. So it's not a fight that you're putting together by way of popular demand. You don't actually have any unfinished business, because when you fought him, you beat him. So what need is there for a second fight? And it's likely because neither of them want to run it back with Levant Roach. Remember that Levant, quote-unquote, drew with Gervonta, and he drew with Cruz, so it looks like you're using each other to not have to fight him. We know that from the moment their initial meeting ended, Cruz has been vying for a second fight with Gervonta Davis, having performed better than people expected. I think him being a short notice opponent has a lot to do with that, because initially Gervonta Davis was training for a Rolly Romero fight, but at that time Rolly had some legal issues of his own. Enter Cruz, who took the fight on short notice. Training for one guy, you end up fighting another. It can affect how you perform, and Isak is built completely different to a Rolly Romero. He's a shorter, stumpier, stockier fighter, not a lot of bells and whistles, but a whole lot of durability and pressure. He did make Gervonta Davis work for the victory. Though as stated, there's not much of a precedent for a second fight.
That's not going to make a difference in him and Pitbull and Tank versus a Pitbull and Roach. Everybody want to see Roach versus Tank, Tank versus Roach too. You know, everybody want to see that, you know, versus a Pitbull, Tank too. And the crowd going to sell out. Regardless. And I don't think Pitbull is not a pay-per-view draw.
Exactly.
That's my man. He's not. You know, he's not.
He's not.
No, he's not. So, you know, he's...
What about with Tank? If he's with Tank, is he still a pay-per-view draw like they did before?
No. I think it's
they were pay-per-view before.
I think Pitbull, I think we outsell him. Roach Tank, let's outsell a Pitbull Tank.
So do you
I don't think nobody want to see it. See, I don't think real boxing fans don't want to see that fight.
We don't. That was Lamont Roach's father, who recently sat down with Mill City Boxing, saying that the rematch between him and Tank would sell better than the rematch between Tank and Isak, and I can't help but agree, because the rematch with Tank and Isak has no intrigue. There's no real reason to do it. Somebody buys that pay-per-view, it's gotta be for love of Gervonta Davis, because Isak is not a pay-per-view draw. And Lamont Roach and Lamont Roach's father would know, because they just headlined a pay-per-view with that same Cruz. They know what it did and what it didn't do. And they know that Isak is not a pay-per-view draw intimately. You saw Mill City Boxing almost surprised by the suggestion, bringing up the pay-per-view that Isak had with Gervonta, but he must have forgot that he took that fight on short notice, and at that time, nobody knew Cruz, so he didn't land that fight because he was a draw. He landed that fight because he was around, because he was on the undercard. They needed a short notice opponent because Rolly had some legal trouble. That's how he got the fight, not because he's a big draw. And nothing he's done since then indicates that he's become a pay-per-view draw. Just headlined a show with Lamont Roach that likely didn't sell anything, which is why no big numbers were reported, and before that he was mostly fighting on undercards. Different undercards for different people. He ain't no pay-per-view star. Now, because the audience is a bit more familiar with Cruz now than when they first saw him fighting Gervonta Davis, it's conceivable that the second fight might sell a little better than the first one did, but the rematch that sells the most is the Roach rematch. That one would outsell the Cruz fight. That's the one with all the intrigue. The added intrigue that Lamont Roach might be afforded the chance to come back and finish the job against Gervonta, or that Gervonta might redeem himself for that lackluster showing against an opponent he was heavily favored to beat, who he brought up from 130 up to 135 and took him and everybody else by surprise. To a lot of people, Lamont Roach was the unofficial winner of that fight.
Fighting Isak Cruz doesn't change that.
Nope.
Whatever happens to Lamont Roach, somebody else comes along. Somebody else beats him. That doesn't help Gervonta Davis's case.
Doesn't make him look good. If anything, it makes him look bad that somebody else came along and did the job on Lamont that he was expected to do, even though somebody already has.
I should say. Jamel Herring beat Lamont Roach years ago. That often gets overlooked.
Likely as a means of damage control for Gervonta Davis, who's perceived as being this great boxer with no great victories. Fighting Isak Cruz for a second time doesn't qualify. The rematch is set to be going down at 140 pounds, which would be presumably for Isak Cruz's WBC interim title, the secondary version of the title that Dalton Smith currently holds. And I don't expect Gervonta, if he wins, to use that as a segue to fight Dalton. He's just going to sit on it like he sat on the WBA Reggie for approximately 5 years from the time that he won it in 2019 until he was ultimately elevated in January of 2024.
Another damning statistic for Gervonta Davis, that the entire time he was in the lightweight division, he never beat a champion in order to be a champion. All he got was an email.
So now he's fighting Isak again. I don't know what this rematch means for the future of Gervonta Davis's career. That still hinges on what happens in that domestic abuse case, but they must be feeling confident about things if they're back to scheduling boxing matches, especially after Gervonta Davis said last year would be his last year in the sport of boxing.
Probably would have been if he would have had that Jake Paul fight. Would have took all that money and sailed into the sunset.
So I don't know if he's fighting because he wants to fight or because he has to, not bringing in as much money as he did with Ryan Garcia in his last 2 pay-per-views. The well might be running dry, mounting legal fees and the overhead of his expensive lifestyle. He might be forced to fight, like his mentor is.
Floyd Mayweather.
I don't give a shit about the rematch, to be honest with you. And I'm not actually pressed about Gervonta Davis redeeming himself against Lamont either. I've always viewed Gervonta as a fucking coward.
Coward.
So if he goes the rest of his mediocre career having not fought Lamont Roach for a second time, I wouldn't be at all surprised. I wouldn't care. He would be living up to my expectations.
Different wrinkles in Opetaia's style. I don't know if that was the intent for Zuffa to, you know, we were talking about, the rollout was going to be that he's going to keep looking destructive the way he's looked. Yeah. But there's still, maybe the intent could be that, hey, we wanted to show Opetaia's repertoire, boxing repertoire. He's not just a puncher. What you have here now is a conversation to really delve into for the rest of the cruiserweight division. What does he do? Where does he go? Is it possible to corner the market in the cruiserweight division? Because we know he did have to vacate the IBF title.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in a little bit.
We'll get that in a little bit, but even the move to heavyweight, you know,
I want to get to that too.
Where do you see Jai based on what you saw yesterday? Because we did see him against a big physical cruiserweight yesterday. You know, remember Glanton's previous fight was against former light heavyweight contender Marcus Brown, right? Yeah. And so Glanton looked the big, he looked the part, but that was against a light heavyweight / cruiserweight
who has not been active. Yeah, has had a lot of out of the ring troubles.
But Opetaia is a cruiserweight / heavyweight. He's never going to be a light heavyweight, but he's going to probably move to heavyweight. And during the broadcast, they were talking about how
Paulie Malignaggi claims to have seen wrinkles in Jai Opetaia's game. Why was he not able to knock out Brendan Glanton like he knocked out David Naika and Claudio Sequeio, more recently Hussein Sankara?
It was definitely a workmanlike performance from Jai Opetaia, but I wouldn't say having to work made him look bad, as he dominated the fight. Looked like a 10-2 fight to me, and that's not even counting all the point deductions that Brendan Glanton amassed due to what were constant holding and low blows.
Didn't have a sheet of paper out, but just watching it, it looked like a 9-3, maybe a 10-2 kind of fight in favor of Jai Opetaia. That's how I saw it. Not getting the knockout, I think, was due to the frenetic pace that Brendan Glanton was trying to set for the fight. Barreling forward, very aggressive at the start, smothering Jai Opetaia and keeping him moving. Whenever they met in the pocket and traded punches, he was so far on the inside, he was kind of smothering Jai's punches, taking a little steam off of them because so close to Jai, depriving him of the leverage to add some torque to the shot. And the rest of the time, as Jai's moving around and using the ring on his toes, he's not sitting on his punches. So his full weight isn't behind them. Not if he's moving around and moving away from the opponent.
This is what we saw at the start. Jai Opetaia got on the good foot, got on his toes, moved around, circling away from Brandon, who was closing in and taking punishment in the process. And that went on for the first half of the fight until the punishment starts to set in and Brandon starts to slow down, starts to take more punishment, though showing a good chin, durability.
Though nothing in terms of adjustments, he just kept fighting the same fight. Kept getting hit more and more as the fight progressed. In the 12th, I think Jai Opetaia came very close to stopping Brandon, staggered him, though Brendan Glanton endured on unsteady legs. He finished the fight on his feet, and as stated, this is still a fight that Jai mostly dominated. Even if he didn't knock the guy out,
There's no question who won, and afterwards he barely had a scratch on him.
you can always count on the American media and the American boxing fans to hold foreign fighters to a different standard in this instance because Jai didn't deliver a knockout, as if Gervonta Davis delivered a knockout when he fought Cruz, when he brought up Lamont Roach.
Where was the knockout?
When David Benavidez fights an exhausted Caleb Plant and doesn't stop him, fights an old Alexander Vosdik, an unproven David Morrell, and doesn't stop them. Where was the knockout?
I didn't see people in the media castigating him for it the way they're seemingly castigating Jai Opetaia, claiming to have seen wrinkles in his game in a fight that he almost completely dominated. All he didn't do was knock Brandon Glanton out, but he won practically every round.
Stated, I saw that fight. Looked like a 9-3, 10-2 kind of fight for me, and that's not even with all the point deductions. Jai Opetaia was the clear winner, but it just is what it is. And what was Jai Opetaia's Zuffa debut that came at the expense of his red and gold title, and people are still debating as to whether or not the IBF was in the right to strip Jai Opetaia. A guy who goes by the name Todd Atkins said, "Why do you feel this way, Dan Rafael? Zuffa has made it clear they intend to put the IBF and others all out of business. Why should the IBF work with them at all? It was a common sense decision."
This guy literally manufactured a quote and then tried to use it in an argument, because Dana White never said that, and nobody at Zuffa ever said that. The most they said was they didn't want to work with the sanctioning bodies.
And based on how the IBF just behaved, can you blame them? Veteran boxing scribe Dan Rafael responded by saying they literally agreed to sanction the fight. The supervisor was there. They took the fee, then bailed late Friday night in a snit. This is on the IBF, not Zuffa in this instance. The IBF could have said no at the very start, and this wouldn't be an issue.
That's what I've been saying. For you to initially sanction the fight and accept the fee, then pull the sanction over what are the optics.
What kind of grade school logic is that?
What people are arguing in favor of? But Dana said...
People need to grow the fuck up is what they need to do. And now as a result of this, a lawsuit could ensue.